Tonight on Praise from Los Angeles, Bill Johnson, Chris Valentine, Ryan Collins, Nona Jones, and Brendan Wochko. And now, Matt and Laurie Crouch.
Praise comes to you today from right here in Southern California. We have this little thing in California called Silicon Valley. A little bit of a technology thing going on. But Pastor Bill, we need to make sense of, first of all, the beginning of the story, which is influence. Why don't we talk about what influence is and why does it matter to our audience today?
Well, the Lord's called us to bring influence. He's called us to be servants. Servanthood is our main suit still. And as we look through Scripture, he says the kingdom of heaven is like leaven. You work leaven into dough, you put it in the right atmosphere, and it has influence on the entire thing. The kingdom of heaven, which means the realm of God's dominion, is like leaven. And so people who live in purity, live in power, live with wisdom, have been sprinkled throughout the system, secular systems, to serve, not to dominate, not to domineer, not to take over, but to serve, to bring out the significance that God has written into the code of every part of culture. And this is the assignment that we have as believers. He calls us salt. He says we're the salt of the earth. And he says if salt has no flavor, it's worthless. And the word worthless there means foolish. Mm-hmm. So salt without flavor is foolish. Salt with flavor is wisdom. That's that divine influence. And we tend to take all Christians, unscrew the salt shaker, pour it in the corner of the meal, and because we like to hang out together, instead of sprinkle through the whole meal so that we enhance the flavor that God has written into the design of every culture.
We are not newcomers to this subject matter, right, but there are some that are just starting to get their head around this. And I suppose, if I'm honest, I didn't think I would, one day, be on a set with Bill Johnson and a computer board kind of thing would be, sitting in the plant here as set decoration. So help me kind of get past the idea of Bill Johnson, who I think of testimonies and healings and, wisdom and these kinds of things. And all of a sudden we're here sitting here talking about technology.
It's an untapped mission field. It's becoming more and more a dominant part of culture in the sense of a place of importance. Entire businesses, they live or they die based on how well their technology is. And so we have a lot of people being trained. In fact, the business leaders of the world are crying out for more people that do coding and things of that nature and create the software, et cetera. And what's happening is that space in culture is being filled by people who have very little moral values, very little sense of righteousness and kind of the things that we would value. So it's a mission field. Mm-hmm. It's a perfect place for us to train people who really want to bring influence, who want to love and care for people, but they have skills. They have, every one of us are gratified in a righteous sense when we use our skills for good purpose. Right. And so when you have somebody who has that gift in math, or they have that gift in computers or whatever, and they're able to use it and then use that platform to care and to love for people, it just satisfies that quest that we have in our heart to bring honor to God with our gifts and our skill. And so it's a mission field.
So what we're talking about today is how Bethel, and when we think of Bethel, we think of your teachings, we think of all the books you've written, we think of your music that's, going around the world. But I think we're about to start recognizing a brand new subject, faith and technology. Take a look at this. This was inspired by Bethel's announcement in regard to technology. Watch this.
Christianity, Islam, Judaism. Almost 80% of the world ascribes to one of the big three faith traditions. Even though there are people who adhere to a certain faith tradition, actual membership in institutional communities of faith has been declining.
The enemy would love to convince you to just live with it, to give up your joy, to lose your...
So we actually did something companies don't do very often, which is we changed our mission.
We saw an opportunity to help people who care about their faith connect to communities of faith that may not necessarily require them to go to a building. We started working with churches and communities of faith all around the world to first deeply understand, how do you build community offline that makes people actually get in their car and go to a building and spend hours there, so we can understand how that's meaningful to people, and then how do we replicate that on our platform?
We saw faith-based organizations coming on the platform, and we saw people really connecting. We have over 100,000 faith-based groups on Facebook already, and continues to grow. And I think what we see is the power of technology to bring us closer together.
Technology is amplifying our intellectual ability, not to take us where we've already been, but to allow us to explore, to innovate, and create.
And I don't think it's a zero-sum game. I don't think that, okay, you can just do online and not do offline. I think that they actually both enhance each other.
I think sometimes people worry that if we do things online, we won't do things in person. And a lot of the research says that's not true, that people who are more likely to use social media actually have closer in-person relationships.
It's a balance between the natural world and the spiritual world. Taking the time to be quiet, to listen, to spend time with people that can nurture you, mentor you, keep you balanced.
We're literally creating the opportunity to connect with people you wouldn't normally meet or interact with. That lowers the barriers to access to community.
Okay, Chris, you've joined us now. We're talking about Bethel Tech. Start us with kind of back in the day. Give us a few stories that kind of set the stage for what we're talking about.
So somewhere around 41 years ago, we got a hippie pastor of our 40-member Assembly of God church.
Wow.
And one of the very first messages I ever heard him preach or teach, and by the way, we were in a very Pentecostal, and then I all of a sudden introduced this man who's standing behind the podium talking, not yelling. And I'm like, well, he can't be anointed. I mean, how do you anoint someone who doesn't yell? And we got to be good friends right away. But Bill, one of the very first messages I remember Bill sharing was this whole thing about Matthew 6 first, seek first the kingdom and his righteousness. And I remember Bill saying, a lot of people have a list, like, first I seek the kingdom, then I seek my family or my ministry, whatever. I have this list. And Bill said, actually, we seek the kingdom, and if it isn't in the kingdom, we don't seek it. So all of a sudden, I was in business, and Bill took the business world, and he just pulled what I did every day, and he pulled it into the kingdom.
Right.
I'm like, all of a sudden, I went from this dualistic kind of thought, okay, I do my ministry, then I do my business.
Right.
And in one message, Bill pulled my business into the kingdom and made it my ministry.
Got it.
That was revolutionary thinking for me.
Absolutely.
I think that one of the things that we're learning is that, there's IQ, there's EQ now. We're hearing a lot about emotional intelligence. There's books being written. By the way, I think they're great, but no one's talking about SQ. No one's talking about spiritual intelligence.
Wow.
And Paul said, be renewed in the spirit of your mind. Yeah. So we think tridimensionally, and yet we are only working on 2 dimensions of the education of our mind. We're building our IQ, we're building our EQ, we do, and I believe we should. Right. But I don't know if anyone's talking about how do we build our spiritual intelligence?
Right.
How do we learn to partner with the Holy Spirit and tap into the mind of Christ? And when we're thinking about the mind of Christ, we're not just thinking about what does God think about this verse, but we're actually thinking about what does God think about this car? What does God think about this situation? How does God think about, how would God reimagine the issues we're having with our economy. And I think we need to like build neural pathways into the spirit of our mind, and not just into the IQ and EQ.
To sit here today and basically be talking about the things that we're talking about, influence, being salt in the earth, and specifically now into Bethel Tech. You guys are an inspiration. We at TBN applaud what we're doing. We're wanting to get the word out about Bethel Tech, okay? I didn't say Bethel Worship, even though that's a big thing. We didn't say Bethel Ministry, School of Ministry, and that's a big thing. We're talking about Bethel Tech. And for those that know how to do math, and that's your thing, watch this. This is an amazing role in Bethel Tech. Watch.
Technology is only technology to those born before the technology. There's more than one way to get to a right answer.
We're in the information age, and therefore whoever controls the information gate rules the world.
There's a massive need for new talent in the tech space. There are over 500,000 open computing jobs as we speak right now. That number will rise to over 1 million in the next couple of years.
The Bethel School of Technology is working to fill those open tech positions with a first-of-its-kind, faith-based coding boot camp. This intensive 9-month mentor-based online program blends technical training with spiritual growth.
The vision of Bethel Tech is to bring the love of Christ to everyone, everywhere, to and through the tech space.
And for me, it's the thing that separates us from all the rest. There's other coding camps out there, but we're doing something unique that I've never seen before, where we're taking kingdom culture and skills and partnering together and launching digital revivalists into the tech space.
We set out to equip believers with the most in-demand tech skills in the world so that they can go work for companies and serve those organizations with excellence.
The Bethel Tech Training Program is open to recent high school graduates, career changers, and working professionals, even those with very little tech skills.
A lot of people think perhaps that they don't have the tech background to do something like this and go into an organization as a software developer or a data scientist. But the reality is that they do. If they have a passion for it and they have the character, we can take them from scratch and provide this kind of linear, modular approach so that by the end of our program, they're proficient and hireable as a full-stack developer. We see education as a vehicle to take somebody from desperate to middle class through a program like ours in as little as 9 months. The starting pay for a junior developer is $70,000, and it's not uncommon for a mid-level developer within 3 to 5 years of being a developer to be making 6 figures.
At Bethel Tech, not only will you be provided one-on-one instruction and mentoring, but additional support and open dialogue with classmates.
We learn from each other. When I went to school, collaboration was called cheating, because every project I ever was assigned was a single project. I never had the opportunity to leverage everybody's diversity. In the workforce, that's key.
But it's not just the technical skills, strong work ethic, and willingness to collaborate that employers are looking for.
Whether you're a believer or not, the character is a buzzword in the tech space. There are a lot of companies that want to make sure that they're getting individuals with high integrity that aren't going to get them in trouble so that they end up on the front page of the New York Times. You know, Martin Luther King Jr. said, intelligence plus character, that is the true goal of education. That speaks to the heart of what Bethel School of Technology is.
They come in to learn coding, but what if we could see the soul whole too? Like it says, if the soul prospers, all things prosper.
Absolutely beautiful.
Love that.
Can you imagine really what, I mean, look, I have goosebumps in regard to what we're talking about today. It seems like it's fresh, but it shouldn't have been. It should have been something. Pastor, teach just for a moment, both of you guys, just kind of give us the overview of really what we're talking about today.
It's the responsibility to be kingdom-minded people and allow God to sprinkle us into culture, into society. We're not there to dominate. We're not there to tell people what to do. We do share the gospel. We do pray for the sick. We do all that stuff. But we're there literally as servants of the Lord to bring answers, solutions, things that people are crying out for. Sometimes what brings a person to Christ is the fact that you have a healthy family. They see it. They admire it. They want to know, how come your teenage kids actually respect you? Mm-hmm. And so there's the very thing that draws them to the place of safety, and that's where you love and you care and you serve people. And that's really the bottom line. It doesn't matter what we're gifted at doing. It's just we use everything we are, everything we have, to promote the gospel of the kingdom.
Mm. I think, we almost have an unreached people group in America. And we train people all the time to go to these distant places, Africa, the villages, Heidi Baker, and we love all of that.
Absolutely.
But we really have missed a people group in our own country, in that some of the wisest, some of the smartest, most intelligent people in America are in the tech space, mm-hmm. and they're actually dictating, if you will, they're dictating the narrative of America, and largely they're not being influenced by the King and his kingdom. And this is, I think that it's really important to realize in the information age, whoever controls the information gate, or let's say influences the information gate, because we have no desire to control anything, but whoever influences the information gate rules the world right now. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it used to be the golden rule, whoever has the gold rules, but today it's whoever has that gate really rules the world. And so I think it's really imperative that we raise up people for every realm of society who can bring the kingdom in a very practical way.
Chris Valaton, thank you for being here. You interviewed Ryan Collins. A little clip. Watch this. We're going to bring Ryan on in just a moment. Watch.
Hi, really excited to talk to you about Bethel School of Technology. And this is Ryan Collins. Ryan is actually the CEO of our new company. Ryan, tell them a little bit about the school.
It's a first-of-its-kind faith-based software development and in-demand technology boot camp. So we are combining what there is a demand for in the market in terms of jobs, and we're also adding the kingdom-minded aspect from Bethel.
This is really a perfect time to start a technology school. We're seeing God move in every other dimension of life, and technology, invention, innovation seems to be a place where God's really, really emphasizing right now.
What we've seen in the boot camp space is that so many people have talked themselves out of something great because they don't think that they fit the mold.
I really want you to check out Bethel School of Technology. There are so many opportunities out there. We would like to partner with you to actually see you change your life and change your legacy.
Finally, we have someone on set that can explain to us what this is. So, Ryan, what is that thing?
I think this is a flux capacitor.
Okay, exactly.
Future.
Okay. That's exactly what that is. You put a banana down on that. And
we're this close to time travel.
Okay, perfect. I love that. Okay, Bethel Tech and time travel. If you're interested in those two subjects, this is your program.
I think I've ever seen one of those.
Okay, Ryan. Why don't we start with how you got connected to the Bethel movement and how Bethel Tech really kind of started?
Yeah, so my family and I, we were in Oklahoma City. We helped a church plant out there, and it was really my first foray into ministry. I've been working in corporate education partnerships for online higher ed for the last 10 years, 12 years. And was working with a company that owned one of the best software development boot camps in the country. And overnight, I was seeing that the majority of my partnerships with companies like IBM and Microsoft and Cigna and Liberty Mutual, it didn't matter what industry, they all needed tech talent like yesterday.
Wow.
So I was focused on that, but then also getting into ministry. And the Lord put it on my heart one night. I had actually spoken a message about being the love of Christ to everyone everywhere. And that night, God put it on my heart that what I was doing on the corporate side and what I was doing on the ministry side was going to merge, and it was going to be overt. So I kind of tucked that away. And then I was driving back from a business trip from Dallas to Oklahoma City, and I remember seeing, it was about 4:30 in the afternoon, and I remember seeing the sky, and it just reminded me of a California blue sky. And as soon as I thought California, God put Redding on my heart. And we knew of Bethel, so we got introduced to Bethel through Danny Silk's 11-Year Kids on Purpose. I started reading some of Bill's stuff and Chris's stuff, and of course we knew every Sunday we were doing Bethel music, you know. And I go home, and then not too long after that, my wife comes up to me and she says, "Ryan, is God saying something to you about California?" And I was like, "Yeah." And she said, "Well, what is it?" And I said, "I think we're supposed to move to Redding." And she said, "Well, that's what he's telling me as well."
Wow. Wow.
So we prayed about it, Holy Spirit confirmed, and so we just said, "Yes, Lord." We built a business plan. I met with Chris and Bill, and that was in August of 2017. We had been renting in Oklahoma City. We knew Oklahoma City was temporary, so we didn't renew our lease, and got the green light and moved up in September and built the school and launched it in January of 2018.
Wow.
Wow.
According to Ryan Collins, this is a flux capacitor. And it's really the basic, that's the building block for time travel. And Ryan Collins, we have a bio that he'll explain all about the flux capacitor. Watch this.
Ryan Collins connects corporations with higher education to attract, develop, and retain talent.
Intelligence plus character, that is the true goal of education. And that speaks to the heart of what Bethel School of Technology is.
Most notably, the Bethel Tech CEO has led the charge in partnering Fortune-level companies with coding boot camps to bridge the skills gap for in-demand IT roles. His corporate education partnerships have fostered labor market growth, increased productivity, and created pathways for underserved and at-risk communities to help attain higher-paying jobs.
We set out to equip believers with the most in-demand tech skills in the world, so that they can go work for companies and serve those organizations with excellence, not just in skill, but also in character.
Ryan's spiritual journey includes direct involvement in planting a church. He is a graduate of the University of Missouri School of Journalism with credits from a number of publications, including American Way and SB Nation. He and his wife, Brianna, have been married since 2005, have 3 daughters, and live in Redding, California. Ryan Collins.
Beautiful. Okay, Ryan, you're a Bethel employee in charge of the Bethel Tech. Your bosses are both sitting here on set, so just be careful.
What are you trying to tell me?
Yeah, just be careful how you describe. But what are you looking for when you're talking about somebody that could excel in coding?
Yeah.
What should they be good at the beginning? Not as much singing.
Yeah.
Okay. It needs to be more something else. Like what?
Yeah. Well, first of all, they have to have a passion to bring the love of Christ to everyone, everywhere.
Okay.
We have an opportunity with the most influential space in the world to reach everybody in the world where we couldn't reach them before. So that has to start here. And then people that have a passion for technology, maybe they come alive when they're on social media, or they really geek out to figuring out how applications work and the back end of a web application. So those types of things I think are really important. And one of the things that we like to stress at Bethel Tech is that you don't have to have a tech background to go through our program. In fact, there are over 500,000 open computing jobs right now as we speak.
Wow.
And there is not enough talent in the tech space right now to fill those jobs. So we need an influx of new talent. And so what we try to stress to people is we can take you from scratch, and in 9 months, through this kind of modular approach, can teach you to be a full stack developer or a data scientist so that you can go and get these jobs making $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 starting out with an amazing career trajectory of making 6 figures, but you can usher the presence of God in the most influential space in the world and have a profound impact. So one of the kind of unexpected impacts when we launched this program, we knew that we'd have the ear of the faith-based community, but we started getting at the table with the big 4 tech companies, all these major companies who are highly interested in character.
Yeah.
And making sure that they're bringing people in that will elevate their workplace culture. And so they see us as one of the first ever values-based, purpose-driven boot camps in the world.
Wow.
And they're like, let's talk.
Yeah.
Wow. You know, Lori and I have been reading in the Old Testament, and it sounds like you were almost reading a description of kind of like Daniel and Joseph and the very characteristics of somebody that a Pharaoh would tap to basically solve the problems that were getting ready to face the kingdom of Egypt at that time, you know, in Joseph's circumstance. So what we're talking about is Bethel Tech. Ryan here just sat down with the COO of Facebook, Sheryl Sandberg. Take a look at this.
Hi, everyone. We are here with the amazing Sheryl Sandberg, Chief Operation Officer at Facebook, here at Facebook's headquarters at Menlo Park, California. Sheryl, thank you for joining us today.
Ryan, thank you for visiting us on what is a rainy, not so sunny California day.
Well, we really appreciate your time, and we just love what you guys are doing at Facebook to work with faith-based organizations. And so I wanted to talk to you about that today. And one of the things I wanted to start with is just your focus, your mission in helping build community. So let's start there. What is the reason for you guys being so intentional in building community?
When Facebook started, which is now 15 years ago, the mission was to help people connect and give people the power to share. And that's still very important to us today. But over a year ago, Mark really had a chance, our founder, to think about what mattered. And it's not enough to just help people connect. It's about the depth and importance of those connections, and that's really about community. So we actually did something companies don't do very often, which is we changed our mission. And our mission itself is focused on building community. And one of the reasons I'm so excited to welcome you here, even though the weather's not cooperating, is that faith-based communities are so important, both in people's lives offline, but also I think increasingly in people's lives online. We have over 100,000 faith-based groups on Facebook already and continues to grow. One of the things we've really thought about is meaningful social interactions, the interactions that matter. And if you start thinking about meaningful social interactions, it's hard not to think about the interactions and the groups and the communities that are faith-based. So I think it's a very natural fit, both because of what's already happening on the platform, but also because it ties so closely into our mission around community and around things that really matter to us.
Yeah, I love that. Now, you wrote a book, Option B, back in 2017. It's a beautiful book. I highly encourage anybody who is interested in getting a good read, pick up that book. You're incredibly transparent and vulnerable about the loss of your husband, Dave. And one of the things that was most insightful for me was when you were talking about what Dave would want your kids to know as they got older. And he said curiosity, kindness, integrity, and love. And I think those are 4 of the main pillars that are needed to build community, to make the world a better place, and to improve workplace culture. So how do we achieve those 4 pillars?
Well, curiosity, caring about what other people think, connecting to other people, whether we do it in person as you and I are doing this conversation, or maybe your audience that is curious about the new guest you're going to bring on and watch you, or whether we do that because we're exploring online and we find things. Kindness, kind to each other. Believe the best. Don't assume the worst. When someone says something that hurts our feelings, which happens, right? Ask why rather than lash out. Integrity always, because we have to act in our own best selves. Being honest and true. Acknowledge when we make mistakes. Acknowledge when we have to do better. And love. Yeah. Whether that's love for each other as human beings, love for children, love for God, maybe love for someone who's no longer with us. Because if there's one thing I learned through this, you know, I think there is so many people and so much of your audience understand that you can love something you can't touch or feel, and that would be God for some people. You can also love someone who's no longer with you because the person can pass away, but the love is there and the love is real, and you can love them every bit as much today as you did when they were alive. And I think that experience became very, very connected for me. And I think for a lot of people who've lost people.
Yeah. You know, I have a belief that we have an innate desire to love and be loved. And the Bible says in Genesis that God made us in his image, and then it says that God is love. So if you connect the dots, if God is love and we were made in his image, that we are designed for love. So I believe that everything that you shared in your book was actually pointing to that desire for us to connect through love. So
that was beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. I really believe that's true. And I believe we find that both in connection to faith, but also in connection to each other.
Yep, absolutely.
The absolute kindness people will show each other online. I mean, the story after story after story of someone seeing someone else in need, whether it's spiritual need, whether it's emotional need, whether it's physical need for a home, for a shelter. I was just in Europe, and there's a group, I believe in France, and there was a woman who was living in her car, wanted to take her own life, posted that, and people in this group she was in jumped in, convinced her not to commit suicide, got her a home, helped her get a job, and then she did a post later, happily living in an apartment with her daughter, right?
Yeah.
That those were, a lot of those were total strangers, that connection to each other and love. Not everyone is good, and we've certainly seen our share of bad on our platforms and others, but deep in my heart, I believe that most people are deeply good. And they do want to connect and help each other, and we just have to help them find that way.
Yeah, I love that. Light will always overcome darkness. It's a physical reality.
The golden rule is treat others as you would want to be treated, but the platinum rule is treat others as they want to be treated. And I think when you're going through something hard, like for me, losing a spouse suddenly, most of your friends, no matter how meaning they are, haven't had that experience. And trying to treat you as they would want to be treated, they don't know. So ask people. You are facing cancer. You. What can I do for you? Don't assume you know. I think that communication and that direct connection makes such a big difference.
The platinum rule. You mentioned that.
Platinum rule, and then through Facebook, give people the ability to help each other so that we can be our best selves. I guess that's my why. Well, thank you for the opportunity to talk to your audience. Thank you all for tuning in, and thank you for just a reminder that light always overcomes darkness, and God is love. Those are two things that I will take with me from this, and I'm really grateful.
Thanks, Cheryl.
Thanks for coming to Facebook.
Wow, your comment on that roll-in, Pastor Bill?
Light always overcomes darkness. Always.
Isn't that amazing?
That's it, yeah. We're the light of the world, yeah.
Ryan, there's 500,000 jobs waiting for people that can get through a program like this and be a part of, oftentimes people say that, accounting is the language of business. And certainly that is partly true. But holy smokes, is not coding the language of business now?
Coding and data.
At least, at least the same amount. So kind of your final thoughts on this, and we are going to introduce Nona Jones here in a second.
Yeah, I mean, it's an experiment. We proved the concept in year one. We have an 83% job placement rate within 120 days of graduation.
Nice.
We have an 83% overall retention rate. And more companies are coming to us and saying, we need your graduates like yesterday.
We're going to get to know Nona Jones. We got to roll and watch this.
Nona Jones' life has taken her from the boardroom to the White House and from the pulpit to Silicon Valley. She expertly walks the delicate line between the world of business and the world of faith, building a bridge between the two for kingdom impact. Nona is leveraging her experience as a technological innovator at Facebook to launch a social media revolution. She literally wrote the book on social ministry, equipping churches around the world to leverage social media as a strategic tool for building God's kingdom on earth. As one of the most sought-after speakers in the field of church leadership and communications, Nona says, it doesn't matter how big your following is if your followers never follow Jesus through you. With a message of forgiveness and faith, Nona is inspiring men, women, and teens to walk in the freeing power of God's grace as they chart a path toward achieving their dreams. Please welcome Nona Jones.
Beautiful.
Beautiful. Nona, okay, Facebook is kind of a tech company, is what I've heard.
A little bit.
I've heard that.
Kind of startup, yeah.
And so there is what we're talking about in general here is, Bethel Tech. Speak on behalf of the company you work for. Is there a need for what we're talking about, the school in general?
Oh, absolutely. So Facebook, as large as we are, I mean, we're growing. We're constantly expanding. One thing I will add is a lot of times when people think about technology, they just think about, the coding and the computer science side of it. But we also have HR. We have branding, we have a partnerships team that actually works with organizations that are trying to build on the platform. There are so many different cracks and crevices within the technology sector that you can find your voice in your space. And so, even if you don't get a computer science degree, the reality is there is a space for you. And I think as a company, as we grow and evolve, we're always trying to better understand our users, and we're always trying to better understand their interests. So yes, there is a need for techies and non-techies alike.
We need to say thank you to Facebook, kind of the TBN secondary studio there up there in Menlo Park, So we took cameras up there, we got a lot of that, and Cheryl Sandberg, thank you for being a part of this program. So, Nona, you know about what we're kind of talking about here. By the way, this is a flux capacitor.
It is. Yeah. This is, yes.
That's what
exactly
that
what
is.
this is. Thank you.
According to Ryan Collins, that's a flux capacitor.
Yeah.
And Bethel Tech is on the verge of time travel. So, but for reals, I can take that from you.
Is that really what it is?
You can hold that. Ultimately, what would you say to those that are viewing in regard to this project that we're kind of unfolding here? You happen to work for one of the most well-known companies maybe in the world, and the idea that we should be salt, is exactly what you're doing. You're living it. What do parents need to know about the environment and the project that we're talking about here?
Well, I will start here and say that I believe that technology, in particular social technology, is the next reformation of ministry.
Yep.
Statistically, right now, 2 out of 3 churches are either declining or plateauing in attendance. And Gallup did a study, and they found that 40% of Americans say they're attending church each weekend, but actually it's 20%. Wow. So 80% of people are not showing up to the building, and that's the traditional model of ministry. 75% of Americans are on Facebook, 3 out of 4. Wow. And I've heard from so many pastors who have said, oh, I don't want to be on Facebook. I don't want to go on Facebook. And the question I always pose to them is I say, if 75% of your community was congregated in one area, you mean to tell me you would not have a location there? And they're like, well, of course I would. I'm like, it's the exact same thing, but the difference is now you don't have to pay for brick and mortar, you don't have to pay for utilities. My goodness, it's a great investment. I think for the people who aren't sitting here, you have to realize that now you don't necessarily have to have 20 years in ministry in order to advance the Great Commission. You don't have to necessarily have gone to seminary. You don't have to rent out a building. Now you can actually spread the gospel just with your fingertips. At any moment, you can share what God is doing in your life. And so I like to encourage people that way, because people often think that ministry requires a title or it requires all of this training. Right. But then you look at what Jesus did, right? Like he basically saw these 12 men and was like, hey, follow me. Yeah. He didn't say, go to school, a few years later, then we'll see what happens, right? And I think that what social technology has done is that it's allowed us to return to the biblical model of ministry. Jesus didn't stand on a street corner and say, hey guys, come see my next sermon series on Sunday, right? He witnessed to people right where they are. He met the needs of the people right where they stood.
So good.
And so that's what social technology allows you to do. It's not about a time, a place, a location. It's instantly right where you are. You can actually witness to people. You can provide hope in desperate situations. And I believe that's the power that it gives all of us. The thing that I always tell parents who are so just cautious about social technology is I'm like, listen, if you really want to build the next generation of ministry leaders, you have to understand the power of social technology because it literally is lowering the barrier to access the good news of Jesus. Now you don't have to get in a car and drive somewhere. You can actually minister and witness right there through your phone. And so it's not something to fear. It's something to embrace and something to celebrate, because I believe that technology is what God is using in this day and age.
Two things fundamentally have shaped my life or changed my life, which is, both meeting Jesus and writing code, learning how to code. I'm just, kind of a normal guy who grew up in a suburb of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. The world of computers and technology was, that's not like what my natural destination was. I just started out as a junior web developer back in 1998. I just did what everybody else did, just went to work and worked really hard and tried to apply all the knowledge I had and get better and better at my craft. I wasn't a particularly talented student in math. I wasn't a particularly talented student in science. Are those things an advantage? Yeah, sure, they're an advantage, but they're not a prerequisite, So for me, when I got into all this stuff, there wasn't a lot of formal education. The opportunity to get into a program like Bethel Tech, I would have accelerated my growth by 5 or 10 years had something like that existed. I think the thing that's most exciting to me is this idea that you can go from desperate to middle class in 9 months. I mean, it took years of tinkering and exploring and persisting and failing and pushing through it. And a lot of that happened alone with me. It was just me trying to figure it out myself. Not only is the education great in Bethel Tech, but also the factor of community and mentorship and having peers and moving in a common direction. There's just a ton of hope there. I think it's really exciting to get yourself around other people that have common goals. For me, I mean, the thing that stands out the most culturally in those kinds of environments is really just caring about people. Fantastic people aren't hard to come by if you know where to look. The hard thing is just knowing where to look. That is the great potential of this relationship between Bethel Tech and Ramsey Solutions, is finding people that are in fact, like-minded. I think it's a powerful proposition. I have probably what I would consider a pretty rare opportunity where I get to go to a place every day that I absolutely love to work with people in a culture that's absolutely second to none. We get to do work that changes people's lives every day. In fact, millions of people's lives every day, and that's totally irreplaceable. The encouragement I give to people is, if I can do it, literally anyone can do it.
Okay, joining us is Brendan Wochko, Senior Technology Officer for Ramsey Solutions. First of all, Dave Ramsey, amazing content provider. You're in charge of what in his organization?
Yeah, so I'm responsible for everything on the internet that the public sees.
Okay. What exactly does that mean?
So we've got, probably around 40 different websites, apps that you get on your phone that we use all the time to, deliver the message we're delivering, which is, help people get out of debt and really help grow their businesses.
Dave Ramsey, we all know who Dave Ramsey is and the amazing work he does with people. And my dad loved Dave Ramsey, okay, because my dad was a businessman.
Yeah.
And TBN was built debt-free. We've never used banking and so all that. So, I mean, Dave Ramsey's messaging and the TBN philosophy are fully aligned. And,
yeah.
And so the exciting thing is that Dave Ramsey's organization, you being the, head of the software side of things, are partnering now with Bethel Tech for what? What do you need Bethel Tech to supply to you?
Yeah, well, I mean, we're like every other company on the planet that, it heavily depends on the world of the internet, right? And so we need software engineers just like every other company does. I think the thing that we love so much about Bethel Tech is the fact that, they're producing students that, kind of already think like we do, which is a big deal. Building a great team, I'm sure you have this here, but building a great team anywhere isn't just whether you have the material skills. It's also if, we can find people that, fit into a culture of what we believe in and the values that we drive.
Okay, what are your students going to do at Dave Ramsey's organization?
So when Brendan and I first met, one of the things that really stuck out to us is that the time it took them to actually hire a developer wasn't necessarily dependent on the skills, it was the culture fit. So that was the synergy there. And so we got really excited about how we could be a pipeline for their talent needs. And so we've actually worked with their team to customize a program. We've taken our program and then customized along with our lead instructor. And what we're doing is we're pathwaying individuals through the program. So we've got 3 that are going to start in May. And they're actually going to fill in the gaps here, but they're going to start in your customer success center as they're going through our program. And then we're going to find these inflection points within our program, which we call micro-credentials, and we can move them into a QA tester, we can move them into front end, and then eventually into full stack. So it actually reduces significantly the amount of time that they're taking to find quality talent in terms of skill and character, and it's helping our students land a job even as they're going through our program.
So if somebody's watching and says, love Dave Ramsey's organization, love the idea of my son or daughter going to Bethel Tech, you're looking at the pathway right here, right now, which would be learning what they specifically need them to learn while they're learning.
Yep. I think that's the future of education aligning with the future of work. And so we're in pilot concept right now. So we're proving it out, and I think I'm very excited where we've come so far. So if you can take a program like this and create some strategic partnerships like what we're doing with Dave Ramsey, and a student can either get some of it paid for or all of it paid for, or maybe even none of it paid for, but it's instead of spending $200,000 on a 4-year program, you're spending $15,000 or something on a 9-month program. You get a job for $60,000, $70,000, and then what happens is then you're in that company and they see you as a high potential employee that they want a pathway into leadership. Then they start helping you finish your education and get your degree. You see, and they'll even help fund it.
Wow.
And by the way, a program like ours translates or articulates as 12 to 15 college credits in most degree programs. So you're saving time, you're saving money, and you're actually solving for that #1 consumer debt in America. So it's pretty exciting.
So Bethel Tech's already existing partnership is with the Dave Ramsey organization. You need 200 you'll have 200 coders by the end of this year, and that's customizing the experience for the users of Dave Ramsey's products, like his, budgeting apps and his all of that kind of stuff. And that's what his organization needs guys like you for.
So
and growing.
Oh, and growing like crazy. Yeah, we certainly will not slow down. We have 150 now. We'll grow to 200 by the end of the year. We'll continue to do that probably every year into the foreseeable future. So the awesome thing about coding is, you can be a technical person or become a technical person and still have the opportunity to be like a millimeter away from changing somebody's life. I think that's what really motivates me, and it motivates our team, is the opportunity that we can kind of do a behind the scenes job and get to impact millions, if not tens of millions of people every day through what we do, right? So it's extremely, it's extremely exciting to be able to do something like that. And it's an opportunity that really didn't even exist a decade ago. So it's a lot of fun.
We live in an era of mass informations. What if there was a virtual training ground that equipped the technologist's mind and soul with excellence to be an answer to a world crying out for true and authentic connection? We need men and women to rush into the world like a waterline of a flood and raise up a kingdom standard. There will be over 1 million unfilled tech jobs within the next 2 years. These aren't white or blue collar jobs, these are the new collar jobs for minds that see the future clearly. Software development, data science, cyber security, machine learning. The future of work is in the digital world and is full of questions that need solutions. Will you be that person? Will you go where there's a need? The intersection of faith and technology to introduce love like a seed that will transplant power and wisdom through web and wires as the true vine grows and unfurls. Will you join the most influential space on the planet to bring hope to the downloading world?
So I'm having kind of a deja vu moment here. And
have you turned into your dad?
Yeah, I've totally turned into my dad. I mean, it is just, my hair's gray, the whole thing. And so literally the conversation that we're having, that you just introduced to the stage here, is that we shouldn't fear some kind of new technology. And you realize that was the exact conversation when television was starting.
Oh, yeah.
That Christian television was going to basically cause people to never attend another church, and we're all going to just sit on the couch and and now social media is the next wave of that progression. And at some point, speak to that, Pastor. I mean, you have a physical campus. You've got gray hair.
Here, hold
Give
the
us wisdom, sir.
flex capacitor. Steven, are you feeling anything? So this is how Philip.
Got there.
I don't think there's help.
You can't stop it.
Yeah.
Nor should we try.
Got it.
It's a tool. It's not an immoral tool. It's morality is dependent on who is using it for what purpose.
Correct.
And it's a brilliant opportunity for us to utilize what the Lord really has inspired. He's given the creativity, he's given the gifts of inspired thought, all these different things to all these people that are creating different means to communicate. It doesn't mean they replace personal relationship, but they enhance.
Absolutely.
And we need to use everything we can to promote this gospel, and this is part of it.
Let's move into what God has really already started, and kind of build on that. But again, I want to, you kind of changed a little bit of the paradigm in my mind when I was sitting here thinking that I forgot that coders need to be kind of artists too, that there is coding concerning characters and all this kind of stuff. So it's not like you just need some kind of a total math person that can't even draw anything but stick figures. There's a need for both of that. But in general, what have you seen God already cracking the door open with, what's happening inside of this tech area?
It's really exciting. And one of the things I remember when Chris and I were first talking about building this school, I was still in Oklahoma City. And I remember sitting in a Target parking lot and God putting this vision on my heart that we would have coders who would pray Holy Spirit over everything that they code, and it would reach people, and it would impact their lives. And so not too long after that, when we started the school, had one of the leading AI, they call her the AI philosopher at Google, talk to me, and she's a genius. She's also a musical artist and is just a creative genius. And she's literally working in Google Brain right now, and their project is helping to create new sounds for music. It's pretty intense.
Wow.
She told me that she prays over everything that she codes.
Oh my goodness.
And I was fighting back tears because that's what we need. And it's not lost on me that there are bold believers that have said yes. I'm not going to run away from this. I'm going to run toward it. And I'm going to bring the love of Christ. And I'm going to honor my employers, my colleagues, and they've earned the trust, just like Nona has.
I love that.
Yeah. Like if you see Nona, that was one of the big takeaways when we were at Facebook, just how much that they loved you and how much they relied on your insight. And I think even Cheryl said, I wish I had your job sometimes.
I told her, I was like, we'll see if you can put you through an interview. We'll see what happens.
So it brings me a lot of hope, and there is a growing network of believers in Silicon Valley at Facebook, at Amazon, at Apple, at Google, and they're doing it the right way, and they've opened doors for us. So I don't want to look back 50 years from now and say, remember when we had that open door? Because spirituality is actually a huge curiosity in Silicon Valley right now.
Wow.
And we just want to have people encounter the love of Christ because that changes everything.
And can I just say, just super quick, I think the fact that my job even exists often shocks people because there is this perception that Facebook is just so not, religious or spiritual or anything. And
or
when I tell
anti-God
people,
or something.
Yeah, and it's so not true. And so it's funny because when they called me, they knew I was a preacher. They knew I was in ministry. They didn't ask me to do this in spite of that. They asked me to do it because of that.
That's beautiful. So good.
And they've given you the freedom to grow that too, which I think is so cool. Yeah.
Okay. I also want to mention Nona's book, Success from the Inside Out. I think that's kind of almost paralleling the discussion that we're having right now. Yeah. Coding really forms the technologies that we use. We're talking about that. In your book, Nona, what is your concept of this in a nutshell for those that are going to Amazon to buy it?
No, thank you. So super blessed to be able to share this message with the world. Many people, they look at me, they look at all of us, and what they see is the success. Like they see the, the trips, they see the, being on TV, but they don't realize that behind that success, there is a story. And so what I'm basically sharing with them is, I am a survivor of childhood sexual abuse. For many, many years as a child, I was subjected to some serious trauma, and it showed up in my life and in my career. And so what I'm trying to help people see is that faith in God is what helped heal me.
So good.
But success begins within. Yeah. A lot of times we aspire for the physical trappings of success, but those physical trappings can actually trap you if in fact you have not healed from within.
Good.
So I'm just excited to release this message.
Beautiful.
Great work.
Beautiful.
And our friends at Amazon can get this book out to you. Just go to the information on the screen. Nona, final thoughts?
I always like to just make sure people understand the difference between broadcast and social. And my final thought here is simply that, social technology gives you the opportunity to have a conversation with people. And so whether you get a job as a CEO, CFO, CTO or not, you can use these tools in order to help other people discover their purpose while you're discovering yours. And so I hope that through this conversation, people will have been inspired to recognize that no matter where you sit on the spectrum of education, you have the power to make a difference in other people's lives through technology.
Beautiful. So good.
Bethel Tech, it's a brand new school. You know what? Thank you guys for making it happen. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
The Bethel School of Technology is breaking new ground in the field of tech training with a first-of-its-kind faith-based coding boot camp. This intensive one-on-one mentor-based online program blends technical training with spiritual growth.
We're taking kingdom culture and skills and partnering together and launching digital revivalists into the tech space.
There are more than 500,000 open computing jobs right now, and that number is expected to rise to over 1 million in the next 2 years.
We set out to equip believers with the most in-demand tech skills in the world so that they can go work for companies and serve those organizations with excellence.
If you're a recent high school graduate, career changer, or working professional who has a passion for technology, then call the Bethel School of Technology today.
Martin Luther King Jr. said, intelligence plus character, that is the true goal of education.
The Bethel School of Technology, training believers to impact the world.